Some people don't hold on to memories. They hold on to pain, to regret, to people who left years ago but still live inside their mind every single day. And the most dangerous part, most of them don't even realize it. They call it love, loyalty, hope. But often it's fear. Fear of change. Fear of being alone. Fear of accepting that the chapter is over. Because letting go isn't just about losing someone. It's about losing the version of yourself that existed with them. And that's why so many people stay trapped in old relationships, old failures, old identities, and old wounds that keep destroying their future in silence. The human mind was never designed to comfortably release what once made it feel safe, even when that thing is now toxic, even when it's already gone. This is the psychology of people who can't let go. And once you understand it, you'll start seeing how millions of people are secretly prisoners of their past without even knowing it. Pain becomes dangerous when the mind starts treating it like proof of love. A man can know a relationship is destroying him and still refuse to walk away because the brain is not always searching for happiness. It is searching for familiarity. What hurts repeatedly can still feel emotionally safe if it once provided connection, validation, or meaning. That is why so many men replay old conversations, revisit old photos, and mentally return to people who already left. The attachment is no longer about the person. It becomes about identity. Men are often taught to suppress emotion instead of understanding it. So when heartbreak happens, many don't process the loss. They carry it silently. They distract themselves with work, status, ambition, or isolation, while the emotional wound keeps controlling their behavior underneath. A woman may interpret his emotional distance as strength, while internally he is fighting memories he never learned how to release. The mind also clings to pain, because letting go feels like admitting failure. For many men, losing someone feels tied to self-worth. And for many women, watching a man emotionally shut down creates confusion, because what looks like detachment is often unresolved grief hiding behind pride, routine, and emotional survival instincts. The past becomes loudest at night because silence removes distraction. During the day, people stay busy enough to avoid what they truly feel. Work, notifications, conversations, routines, all of it keeps the mind occupied. But the moment everything slows down, unresolved emotions return to the surface. That's when the brain begins replaying old memories, old mistakes, and unfinished conversations like a film that never reaches the final scene. Men often replay the past differently than women. Many men are conditioned to solve problems, not sit with emotions. So, when a relationship ends or a deep emotional wound is left unresolved, the male mind keeps revisiting it in search of an answer, a different outcome, or a moment where things could have been saved. What appears calm on the outside is often mental chaos underneath. A woman may express pain openly and seek emotional support, while many men internalize it and relive it privately for years. Memory is emotional before it is logical. The brain does not replay moments because they were perfect. It replays them because they carried emotional significance. People don't stay attached to the past because they want suffering. They stay attached because part of them still believes understanding the pain will finally set them free. Emotional attachment becomes addictive when the mind starts confusing intensity with connection. The human brain is wired to chase emotional reward, even when that reward comes with pain. That is why some people keep returning to relationships that exhaust them, disrespect them, or slowly destroy their peace. The cycle of affection, distance, validation, and rejection creates emotional highs and lows that the brain begins to crave like a chemical dependency. Men often experience this addiction in silence. Many are taught that needing emotional connection makes them weak. So instead of admitting attachment, they bury themselves deeper into it. A man may continue checking messages, revisiting memories, or thinking about someone who no longer chooses him because the emotional attachment has become part of his daily psychological routine. What looks like obsession is often withdrawal from emotional familiarity. Women frequently recognize emotional patterns faster, but they can also become attached to potential instead of reality. They hold on to who someone could become, while men often hold on to how someone once made them feel. In both cases, the attachment stops being about love and starts becoming about emotional dependency. The brain remembers the moments of connection so powerfully that it ignores the damage surrounding them and keeps demanding one more emotional hit. Familiar pain feels safer to the human mind than unfamiliar freedom. People stay in toxic relationships, unhealthy routines, and emotionally draining situations because certainty gives the brain a false sense of control. Even suffering becomes comfortable when it is predictable. The unknown, on the other hand, forces people to confront uncertainty, loneliness, and the terrifying possibility of rebuilding themselves from nothing. Men often struggle with this more deeply than they admit. Many tie their identity to stability, loyalty, and emotional endurance. So even when a relationship is damaging them mentally, they convince themselves to stay because walking away feels like failure. A man may continue tolerating disrespect, emotional distance, or constant disappointment simply because he has learned how to survive it. Freedom sounds powerful in theory, but in reality it demands emotional risk, and many men were never taught how to handle vulnerability without shame. Women often recognize emotional disconnection earlier, but they can remain attached to the history they built with someone. They remember the investment, the sacrifices, and the vision they once believed in. Both men and women can become trapped by the comfort of emotional familiarity, where pain becomes easier to manage than the uncertainty of starting over and facing a version of life they cannot yet predict. Letting go becomes terrifying when a person realizes they are not only losing someone else, they are losing the version of themselves attached to that relationship. Human beings build identity through emotional connection. The routines, conversations, sacrifices, future plans, and emotional dependence slowly become part of how someone defines who they are. When the attachment disappears, the mind is forced to face a painful question: who am I without this person in my life? Men often experience this crisis in complete silence. Many build their sense of purpose around being needed, respected, or emotionally chosen. So when a relationship ends, it does not just feel like heartbreak. It feels like personal collapse. A man who once felt confident, driven, and emotionally grounded can suddenly feel empty because the role he emotionally lived in no longer exists. Society teaches men to appear composed, but internally, many struggle with confusion, anger, isolation, and a loss of direction they cannot explain out loud. Women often process identity loss through emotional reflection, while many men try to outrun it through distraction. Some bury themselves in work, the gym, success, or temporary validation because staying busy feels easier than confronting emotional absence. But the mind keeps searching for familiarity. It keeps revisiting old memories because part of the brain still believes the old identity can be restored. Real transformation begins when people stop trying to recover the person they used to be and start accepting that growth sometimes requires becoming someone entirely unfamiliar to themselves. Closure becomes dangerous when people treat it like permission to move on. Many spend years believing healing cannot begin until they receive one final conversation, one perfect apology, or one clear explanation for why things fell apart. But life rarely gives emotional endings that feel complete. Most relationships end with confusion, silence, mixed signals, or unanswered questions that continue echoing through the mind long after the connection is gone. Men often struggle with closure because they are conditioned to search for solutions. The male mind wants to fix, understand, and regain control over what was lost. So, when emotional pain has no clear answer, many men become mentally trapped in analysis. They replay conversations, search for hidden meanings, and convince themselves that understanding every detail will finally free them from the attachment. What looks like emotional control on the outside is often a mind refusing to accept uncertainty underneath. Women may seek closure through emotional communication, while many men seek it through internal logic. But both can become prisoners of the same illusion, the belief that another person holds the key to their peace. The problem is that closure, based on someone else's actions, keeps emotional power in someone else's hands. And when that explanation never arrives, people stay emotionally frozen, waiting for relief that may never come. Healing begins when the mind accepts that closure is not something given. It is something created internally. It happens when a person stops chasing answers that cannot change the outcome. It happens when they stop romanticizing the past and start seeing the reality of what the relationship became instead of what they hoped it would become. It happens when men stop viewing emotional pain as weakness and women stop blaming themselves for what they could not control.